Subham, let me know when it's ready, okay? Subham?
Sir?
Let me know when it's ready to go live. Subham, let me know when it's ready, okay?
Okay, sir, we are live now.
Okay. All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Negin Pao Kipgen. I am the Executive Director for Center for Southeast Asian Studies, Genders Club International Affairs, OP Gender Global University. I would like to welcome everyone here, especially speakers. Of course, my research assistant would say the welcome words formally, but I just would like to welcome everyone on board. And today it's a special occasion because we have had a series of these kind of events in the past several years or so. And this is something that we would like to focus on Northeast India, particularly the Kuki community, the political nationalism and political aspiration. So I would like to formally invite my research assistant, Sanjana, to say the welcome words. Sanjana, to you.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. I, on behalf of the Center for Southeast Asian Studies at OP Jindal Global University, would like to extend a warm welcome to our distinguished guests, participants, and audience. Last year, our center organized a discussion on the contested identities and competing claims along the India-Myanmar border, in which a group of scholars from different communities discussed the various issues concerning the region. In order to contribute to the pool of growing discourse on the subject, the theme for today's discussion is a continuation in understanding the developments of this region. With a special focus on one particular community and their movement, we have decided on today's theme for discussion, which is Kuki Nationalism and Political Aspiration. We have here with us a panel of seasoned experts and stakeholders embedded in the community, and it is my pleasure to introduce them. Our first speaker, Dr. Changkhwangam Dongel, is professor at the Department of Political Science, Mizoram University. He will be sharing his insights on the matter of nationalism and armed movement in the region. Our second speaker, Dr. Seilen Haukip, is spokesperson and negotiator of the Kuki National Organization. He will be highlighting whether the move from demands of statehood to territorial council is a change in strategy or goal for the movement. Our third speaker, Mr. Aaron Kipgen, is the General Secretary of the Kuki National Front and the spokesperson of the United People's Front. He will be presenting on the merits related to the political demands in this issue. Our fourth speaker, Dr. Malem Ningthoja, is an independent researcher, editorial member of Revolutionary Democracy, and member of International League of People's Struggle. He will be discussing the challenges to the movement from within and the periphery. And lastly, but not the least, our fifth speaker, Mr. Paujel Chauba, is an investigative journalist and executive editor of the Frontier Manipur and also the former executive editor of Imphal Free Press. He will be talking about the issue as a whole and the way forward. The panel discussion will be chaired by Dr. Negin Pao Kipgen, Executive Director of Center for Southeast Asian Studies. I would once again like to welcome all our speakers and especially thank them for sparing their valuable time to be a part of this event and make it a success. I would now like to open the floor to the chair for the commencement of the discussion. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Sanjana, for the welcome address. Before I invite the first speaker, I just would like to say as a chair a few things, a few rules that we have to follow. I'm going to ask each speaker to stick to about 13 minutes or so that we have plenty of time or enough sufficient time for Q&A session. And you can ask questions to the other speakers if you want, but I want you to please keep that for the Q&A session. And I want all the participants to submit your questions to the chat box. And I'll go through those questions and I will raise to the speakers. If you have any specific question for any specific speaker, please do mention that in your question. And for your information, we are streaming live the entire event, and this will be up in the public domain sometime later this evening. So you'll be able to see the entire event in YouTube as well. And again, one of the reasons why we organize is that there has been armed movement in Northeast India for the past several decades for different regions. And if I'm not mistaken, this is one of the times where we come together in an academic forum, an academic platform, whereby we discuss the issues of armed movement and insurgency problem in Northeast India, especially with regard to the Kuki armed movement and nationalism. I think this is one of the first, if not the first, to have such kind of a public forum, a public discussion where the stakeholders are directly involved and are part of the process. So I want you to be academic as much as possible and also open to different ideas. And I know we have people from the organizations representing, having dialogue with the central government of India. And also we have people who know the issues thoroughly in Northeast India. And one of them, in fact, my research assistant, Sanjana Dhar, is also from Guwahati herself. She knows what's going on in Northeast India. So having said that, I just want to again tell you, please stick to the time. Don't go beyond 30 minutes of the allotted time so that we have enough time for Q&A session. So again, participants, please make sure that you submit your questions in the chat box. And this is being recorded live and it's streamed live in YouTube channel. So now I would like to invite the first speaker, Dr. Jangkungam Dongal. He is the professor, Department of Political Science at Mizoram University. So the floor is yours, Dr. Dongal. Okay, it seems he has
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Welcome on board.
Okay.
So you have 13 minutes. So please, your
13
minutes. So
13 minutes.
Yeah,
Okay.
nationalism and armed movement. So the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Negin Paukipgen. And as the time allotted is just 13 minutes, I have to go a bit fast and I will go to the point straightly. So first, let me start with the introduction. So nationalism and armed movement are two related words which are interrelated. Why? Because every armed movement usually comes out of nationalistic consideration and nationalistic zeal. So nationalism is a doctrine which provides for group of people to enjoy government exclusively for their own people and for their own. So then to start with, who are the Kukis and what is Kuki nationalism? So we can say that the same ethnic group of people who profess to have started from mythological cave, they are identified as Kuki earlier. And this mythological cave is known in different names among different tribes of the group, such as Sinlung, Hul, Hulpi, Hulpui, Hultubizur, Hulpi, Holpuk, and Lungpuk. So, and these people who originated from the same origin, who are related linguistically, culturally, socially, at the time when they settled down in Burmese plain, the Burmese call them Chin. Due to that, Chin became the nomenclature for identifying them in Burma, and the land which they occupied, it came to be known as Chin Hills. So from Chin Hills, some of them, they moved down to Lusai Hills and Chittagong Hill tracts. And at the time when they moved down to Lusai Hills and Chittagong Hill tract, they were known as Kuki by the Bengalis. And people who settled in Lusai Hills, they were known as Lusai. And the colonial writers identified them as Chin, Lusai, Kuki. And on the eve of India's independence, regarding it as more inclusive, the term Mizo came to be used, and Chin, Kuki, Mizo has been used as the nomenclature for identifying them. And after that, some terminology such as Chikim, Zomi came to be used. And so with the establishment of Zhou Reunification Organization, Zhou, way back in 1988, the term Zhou seems to be inclusive, which include the people of this Jin, Kuki, Mizo ethnic group. And recently, some imaginary term, which is very unscientific, Manmasi and all, has been propagated by some, but that is very unscientific and that is very unreliable. And what is political status of these Zhou people or Jin, Kuki, Mizo people? So these people, they inhabited Jin Hills, Segeng Division, and Cabo Valley Burmese Plain in Burma. Then Chittagong Hill Trek in Bengal. Then in India, in the state of Mizoram, hill areas of Manipur, some district in Assam, Tripura, then Nagaland. And the territory inhabited by them was ruled from earlier until ruled in some states by their chiefs. And then what type of armed movement took place after the coming of colonial power? After the coming of the colonial power, British colonialism, the land inhabited by Jin, Kuki, Mizo group or Zhou ethnic group had been encroached one after another by British colonial rulers. And to protect their ancestral land and to protect their freedom, they fought 8 wars against British colonialism, starting from number 1, Lusai Expedition 1871-72, then resistance by Raja Gokutham Guite in 1870-71, declaration of sovereignty by Tonglu Haukip, chief of Chasad in 1877, then Chin Lusai Expedition 1889-90, then Xizang Suk Rebellion from 1892 to 1893, rebellion by Haikam, chief of Khosat from 1892 to 94, then Aisan Rebellion led by Chengzapao Dongal, chief of Aisan in 1910, and the last being Anglo-Kuki War from 1917 to 1919. So those were some of the armed movement being waged by Kuki Chin Mizo group or Zhou ethnic group during colonial period. Then what were the armed movement after post-independent era, starting from sovereign Chinland movement? So as I've said, these Jin Kuki ethnic tribes occupied vast territory. Then Jinland independent movement started in 1964 from Burma with the platform Jin National Front, and prominent leaders of these Jin National Fronts were Rang Nor, who was elected MP in 21 years, then Lieutenant Colonel Son Pao, who was in Burmese army earlier, then Tun Khupum from Manipur. So these 3 persons, they led the sovereign Chinland movement, and many people even from across India participated in this Chinland movement, but this Chinland movement did not survive for a long time. And in 1988, this movement was revived by the present Jin National Front, and they are now in ceasefire with government of Myanmar. Then sovereign independent movement of Mizoram. So Mizo People's Convention was convened at Konkui, Lamka in 1965. And here representatives from MNF, Mizo Union, Mizo National Council came from Mizoram, Lusai Hills. Then all Kuki Chin tribes, they participated in this conference. And after that, Mizo National Front promulgated unilateral declaration of Mizoram independence on 1st March 1966. And with that, different tribes of these Kuki Chin people, they participated in this Mizoram independent movement. And Mizo National Army, they had 2 army battalions in Manipur. Over and above that, the first batch of this Mizo National Army were taken to China successfully by Demkhose Gangte, who was prominent MNA leader from Manipur. And this sovereign independent movement came to an end with the signing of Mizoram Accord in 1986. Then what about the present? One thing that I would like to add was that along with the influence of this MNF movement among the Kuki Chin tribes, so the Naga tribes were also influenced by Naga independent movement from Nagaland. Then what about the present movement, present armed movement? So after the signing of the Mizoram Accord, there was peace and tranquility among the Kuki tribes. There was no armed rebellion and armed movement. But for the first time, Kuki National Front was established by Nelud Kiptem in 1988 with the aim of Kuki land. After that, Kuki National Army was founded by Tangkulun Haukip. Then after that, this insurgent organization started mushrooming among the Kuki people, and now these insurgents are classified and they group under two big umbrella organizations, National Organization, United People's Front. So I will not go into detail. That their own representatives are here. They will speak about it. Then, so all these KNO and UPF groups are now under suspension of operation with government of India. Then now the next point, non-Shu insurgent groups. Now KNO and UPF, they are under suspension of operation with government. And many critical comments had been raised with regard to this KNO and UPF. That means they were silent in certain ethnic issue. And some allegation also had been alleged against them. And along with this, now non-Shu insurgent organizations are coming up. Kuki National Front Nelun, KNFN, Kuki International Army, KLA, KIA, then the Liberation Tiger of Tribal, LTT. So these KNFN, KIA, and LTT, they are newly established insurgent organization. They are not coming under the purview of suspension of operation. And these non-Shu insurgent organization also get good public support from the public. And over and above that, in Karbi Anglong, there are United Kuki Gum Defense Army and Kuki Revolutionary Army under Shu. Then United People's Revolutionary Army under non-Shu, which were not covered by Shu. Okay, now I'll come to the conclusion, concluding remark. I'll come to the conclusion. So, the Kuki tribes or Zhou ethnic group inhabited large territory, as I have mentioned, and they fought 8 wars against British colonialism for protection of their ancestral land and for protection of their freedom. And after independence, these Kuki people experienced Jinle movement in Burma, then independence movement of Mizoram in India. And now armed movement is going on in Manipur and Karbi Anglong. And in Manipur and Karbi Anglong, some of the armed group are under suspension of operation, but there are also still non-Shu groups. So the Kuki people who are known as Chin, Kuki, Mizo, Zomi, and all is now identified with the inclusive name Zhou, as I've mentioned. And recently, very illogical and very unscientific terms such as Manmasi has been propagated by certain group, but this is being laughed and lampooned by many intellectual groups. So now both armed and non-armed group of these Kuki people, they should know that in order to achieve their target and in order that they will be stronger, they should know that they should have good relationship with their ethnic relatives in Chin state and Mizoram. Without that, there will be no development for them. And as history repeats itself, earlier also, so these people, these Kuki tribes occupying different territories help one another. That's why in this regard also, even these armed group or non-armed group or social or political group, they should be conscious of these, their ethnic brother and the outside Shu, whether they have to work for their people, should they dance according to the music by Manipur government. So to work for people or to with Manipur.
Is there a network issue?
All right, all right. I think the speaker has some kind of network problem. So thank you, Professor Dongel. We'll come back to you during the question and answer session. And now, before I invite the second speaker, Dr. Sailin Haukip, the spokesperson of KNO, I just would like to remind the viewers is that you can submit your questions through the chat box. We'll go through those questions at the end of the program. Then we'll ask those questions to the speakers. So please make sure that you submit your questions. At the same time, I want everyone to please turn off your speakers so that the session or the program is not interrupted because I heard a few noises during the first speaker. And then second, leader, I just would like to remind everyone that this is being streamed live in YouTube as well, and we'll be having this up in the public domain sometime later this evening. And again, speakers, please stick to the time as much as possible to 13 minutes to 1-3, so that we have enough time for Q&A session. Now, I would like to invite the second speaker, Dr. Sailan Habkip, who is the spokesperson and negotiator of Kuki National Organization, one of the armed groups in Northeast India. All right, Dr. Sailan, your time. Please unmute your speaker.
Am I audible now?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We have one lady in our midst who introduced us and who gave us the welcome speech. Thank you. I'd like to take up on the topic given to me, which reads, from statehood to territorial council, a change in strategy or goal. Okay. Now, I'd like to start with the comment that strategy or goal would be, I think it would be necessary to examine that slightly. But before going on to that, I would like to say from statehood to territorial council is a decision taken by the KNO and UPF collectively on the basis of developments from the time the two umbrella organizations entered suspension of operations with the government of India and the government of Manipur in 2008. It is a fact that we started out with the demand for statehood, and in due course of time, when the talks commenced, we have had 8 rounds of talks so far. The transition took place from statehood to territorial council. Now, the basic reason for this change is the circumstance that is involved in our movement and the proceedings as we engaged in dialogue with the government, both represented by the state of Manipur as well as a center in Delhi. So, why? One direct answer for that would be necessarily I'll have to go back to the origins of the movement, keeping in perspective from the time KNO and UPF began political dialogue with the government. Now, so necessarily I'd have to mention that at the outset, when statehood was the demand, it was partly spurred by the local geopolitics, if you like. As the world knows, from 92 to 97, there was this NSCNIM program against our people, and that resulted in a lot of casualties of lives and property and displaced people. So it's not incorrect to say that our political adversary, were in the process of making demands according to their rights and choice, and that amounted to, and still maybe does with NSCNIM, of independence and sovereignty, etc., etc. Now, while our movement was spurred by that, we always, from the outset, with our movement, made it clear that we would make our political demands within the constitutional framework of the country. So that being the case, it was obvious that we would go for the best that the constitutional provision has for any group in the country, and statehood was the best. And so we felt this is a political right to make this democratic constitutional demand, and we did. However, as I alluded to earlier, in due course of the 8 rounds of talks we had with inputs from the center as well as from the state, we felt that given that we are within the constitutional framework discussions, it became important to look into recent history, or history as we know in the context of Manipur. It is a fact that the 3 communities in Manipur, the most populous being the Meitei, then the Kuki, and Naga, ethnically speaking, have always been in this region. And insofar as we are made to understand, and we know from oral traditions and written historical accounts by British officials or others, that there was a great deal of communal harmony, notwithstanding that there were incidents more in the hills between the Kuki and Naga. But in all the history that we are aware of, there has never been any problems with the Meitei and Kuki. Rather, from my father's time, even when I was a little kid, I could sense and see the cordial relations between the 2 communities particularly. And if you ask any elderly people from either community, Meitei or Kuki, they will always underline that we have always had cordial relations. And I don't see anything to refute that. Now, I, as a researcher in my own academic interest, have looked into this aspect a little bit. And what I've found is, in fact, a very important underlying premise. The reason there was always cordial relations between the Meitei and Kuki is because there was mutual regard, mutual respect for each other's identity, territory. And as I remember, even as a child, when a Meitei gentleman from Lamlai would go up to my mother's older sister in Sankai, he would come in a bullock cart and he would stay in my mother's older sister's place. He would collect firewood. He would stay the night. He would pay for the firewood, and the next day he would depart. So there was this mutuality, barter system or whatever, and both communities thrived in that respect. Now, the reason I mention that is, in political terminology, that would be expressed in today's term as there was the Meitei Ningtho who ruled in the valley, and in the hills you had the Kuki chieftains among the Kukis who ruled in their respective areas. Now, the cordiality between the Meiteis and the Kukis, essentially in the context that I referred to, is that there was mutual regard for each other's identity and territory and political sphere of influence, if you like. So if you stress that or find a vocabulary suitable for that, there was self-determination for both groups. The Ningtho had his, the Kukis had theirs, and that regard was for each other, and they, coexisted. So peaceful coexistence before the British came was very, very clear. Now, after the British came and they put us under the same administration for administrative convenience, etc., for their interests, we have seen that premise or paradigm in place since the time the British came in the late 19th century. Now, the Kongzom War took place in 1891. After that, the Meitei King was subjugated by the British. They used the Meitei king to rule over into the hills as well. Of course, the political setup by the British was also there in terms of the hill administration and so on. But essentially, both communities came under the British and they ruled us to the best that they can for their advantage. Now, having said that, Kukis, there was this recent issue of the Anglo-Kuki War and the Kuki Rising. Now, Anglo-Kuki War is a recent naming by academics. If I remember correctly, it was late Dr. T.S. Gangte and his wife now who promoted Anglo-Kuki War. It's not incorrect, but it's a term that came up later on. Historically speaking, I personally found at the British Library in London an archive in the Oriental and India Collection Office, the file, which is about 600 pages. I took a picture of it all. I mean, you were not allowed to photocopy it. They took a film and then gave me a film and I made copies, which are not very clear anyway. But the fact is that the academics in London, people working in the British Library, named it the Kuki Rising. Why? Because the implication is, or the meaning is, although Shakespeare called it a rebellion, he as an army officer had to do that, a name for the adversary, he called it a rebellion. But the academics in London put it appropriately and said the Kuki Rising, which means it's not rising, it's not uprising, mind you, it's rising. A very important point, because it means the Kukis were, until at that time, not under the British. They had conquered the valley, and for the hills, they came later on because of logistical problems, whatever issues, that's besides the point. But post 1919, after the Kuki Rising was suppressed, the British administration became more effective in the hills. Now, that I mentioned because it changed the premise of cordial relations, not saying that there's no more cordiality, but it changed the premise of self-determination that existed in Manipur, the valley in one place and other in the hills. And that was completely altered after the British came. And after that single administration went on until the time they left in 1947, they continued to rule us. But in post-independence India, the same structure was reinforced by Government of India, again, for administrative convenience, no doubt. And we have seen that pattern since independence, and now it's 70 plus years. And keeping aside any other historical aspects of nationalism manifest in different ways, as the professor outlined earlier. Now, I'm speaking as a spokesperson of the Kuki National Organization and more specific to what is going on in our political talks. Now, the reason we switch from statehood to territorial council, if I may put it honestly, is to ensure that coexistence is there in Manipur. Now, before it was Ningthau and Kuki chiefs in their respective domains. Today in democratic India and the present system, TC within Manipur. This is a sort of a replication, if you like, of what existed in Manipur before the British came. So for the KNO and UPF, we are not, there's nothing to be apologetic about our political demand. We use the terminology nationalism because that's fashionable. Essentially, it means you're fighting for your political aspirations in a democratic context. So in some ways, it's a bit jarry to use the word nationalism. However, that's the sort of language we apply, and because of the armed movement. And I like to just mention very clearly that the KNO and UPF are armed organizations in dialogue with the government. But really, we have not exercised the arms for the purpose of our political objective at all. These armed status is primarily to withstand the NSCN-IM, onslaught. So that's the primary reason why we are armed. We have never used guns to demand statehood or territorial council. Now, why do we want this now? As I mentioned, the premise before the British came, and today, for the KNO and UPF to ask for territorial council is in view, in regard to our neighbors, our immediate neighbors. If you go to the center is the Meiteis, on the other side, the immediate neighbor is the Nagas. So we want territorial council, which is a goal, which is self-determination, but within Manipur. So it's development oriented, but on the other hand, it's political and also for security from primarily the NSC and IM aggression. Everybody knows how aggressive they are. So we hope that our demand for TC will be appreciated by the Valley people and also in the hills amongst the Nagas. So in a sense, a change in strategy or goal may be described as two sides of the same coin. So a goal or strategy, it's strategy for a goal, and the goal is peaceful coexistence. So I think I have put my position in a nutshell, and if there's any clarification to be made, I'd be happy to do that after the rest of the panelists have spoken. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Hakib, thank you so much. I just would like to remind all the participants from around the world, if you have any questions, so please submit through the chat box. We'll go over those questions toward the end of the session. So the next speaker, before I invite the next speaker, I just want to again remind the fact that we are live in YouTube. In case some of you are not able to log in here, you can tell your friends to watch, follow us through the live streaming. And also, please remember that the live streaming would be available into the public domain sometime late in this afternoon or in the evening, or maybe perhaps tomorrow. And we are also going to prepare a comprehensive report of this entire event, and we'll be sharing with all the speakers with their permission and with their approval. We'll be sharing this report through our networks across the globe in the next few days or so. And now I would like to invite the next speaker, Aaron, who is the General Secretary of Kuki National Front and also the spokesperson for United People's Front. So to talk about merits of political demand. Aaron, you have 13 minutes.
Okay, let me check the sound. Am I audible?
You are, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Nagin Pao, for inviting us to this session. And we're very happy that we are given the opportunity to directly speak with many viewers who are online right now. In fact, we have not got chances like this in the past to speak on the political demands and Kuki nationalism. I will go straight to the points given to me, that is the merits of the political demand. I will have to say that political demand for any group or any ethnic group or community across the globe could be different. The blacks in the United States have this political aspiration called Black Lives Matter. They fought differently for they have different political needs. But in India, one of the most populated ethnic communities we have in Northeast. So when we say the political demand, I will have to go back to, like Dr. Selen has mentioned, a little bit of the history of the political aspirations of the Kukis. And one of the speakers also mentioned how the Kuki armed movement began. Like he said, as I'm representing Kuki National Front, the oldest armed group of the Kukis, which was started in 1987. Many of you might remember that we boycott Independence Day. We had armed conflicts with the security forces, and the cause was demand for statehood. Now that, which was explained by Dr. Sailen, now the political demand has shifted to territorial council. So I will go and focus on the merits of the political demands of the Kukis, which is territorial council for the Kukis in Manipur. First thing, the territorial council which is demanded or which is being discussed in the political dialogue, if we say that it is something that has to be given or gifted to us by the government of Manipur or the other communities, it will be wrong, because the Kukis are asking for their political rights. Till today, the Kukis have not been given the rightful place in Manipur or in India, because as you have mentioned in the history, the Kukis were sovereign. We have our own administration set up. The Kuki chiefs rule over the Kuki territory. And in northeastern states of India, especially Mizoram, where the ethnic communities live, Tripura, Arunachal, and Assam, they enjoy 6th schedule protection for the tribals in this region. And the territorial council that we're talking about for the Kukis in Manipur is a provision under Article 2442 of the 6th schedule of the Constitution of India. So this political demand is to give protection to the customs, traditions, and territorial rights of the Kukis. Few months back, the government of Manipur, which Dr. Sailen has mentioned a little about the incident, did not want the Kukis to mention ancestral land on the monoliths which were erected while celebrating the 100 years Anglo-Kuki War. They said the land belongs to the government. I would like to clarify, the land does not belong to the government, it belongs to the Kukis. The land where the Kukis resides today, since our ancient time, since our forefathers' time until today, the traditional land right belongs to the Kukis. And to have mutual coexistence and mutual understanding in Manipur or any region for that matter, the communities need to understand one's history, culture, tradition, and give equal respect. This is what the Kukis are fighting for, the political goal. This is to safeguard the customary practices, land, and social laws. For instance, there were events recently where in Lemokong, in Kangpopi district, where construction for tribal sports university was going on, there was almost a conflict or misunderstanding between the Métis community and the Kukis community and the Kuki community. And there were incidents in the past where if the security forces or any other companies that have come to work in the hill areas have committed a mistake, these mistakes or misunderstandings are dealt with Kuki customary laws. Like last Independence Day, the Assam Rifles raided one of the leaders of Jedare Gadda's house, the leader's house. And the Zomi Chief Association wanted the Assam Rifles to come and perform according to the Zomi customary laws. So the reason why I mention this is because we have different customary practices. We have different marriage laws, land inheritance laws, and distinct culture. So like other tribes who live or communities who live in other parts of India, the Kukis or the hill tribes in Manipur today felt that feeling of insecurity that their traditional land rights or their rights over territory or land will be taken away by the dominant communities. So I feel the demand for territorial council by KNO and UPF has very important points, because it is not beyond the Constitution of India. First of all, it is within the Constitution of India. And here we totally will be maintaining the territorial integrity of Manipur. That territorial integrity of Manipur will not be affected, and the Kukis will be given self-governance or self-rule. They will be given equal opportunities with other tribes and people they're living with in Manipur. The sixth schedule, they say, is a constitution within the Constitution of India. The open-minded acceptance of the backward classes or the hill tribes by the Constituent Assembly, I should say, is the beauty of the Indian Constitution. Many Métis, or for that matter, people living in the valley today, says that the valley is heavily populated, whereas the hills are very sparsely populated, and the valley dwellers should be able to acquire land in the hill areas. But the people living in the hill areas, we should understand, are the underprivileged tribes, hill tribes, which are less in number, which have different culture, custom, traditions, which the Constitution of India also wants to give protection. There's a provision in the Constitution of India to give enough protection to these people so that they do not get assimilated. However, they get integrated within the Indian Union. So if at all the Kukis are given territorial council in Manipur, it will only give that feeling of safety and security. Nothing will be taken away from the people living in the valley, or there will not be much of a change, I should say, in the administrative setup, because today we have district councils under Manipur Hill Areas Autonomous District Councils Act 1971 in Manipur, according to which there is Churachandpur District Council, there is Sadar Hills District Council, there is Chandel District Council. And the areas that KNU and UPF is asking for only includes the existing district councils, which is today in the hill areas of Manipur. So the hill areas of Manipur today have this separate set of administration given under the District Council Act. So the same set of administration which is given to the district councils will only be given more power, will be only be given more legislative power, executive power, and financial power. So I feel this will only enhance trust between the valley, the Métis, and the Kukis, and the Nagas and the Kukis as well. because once you feel you're secured, your territorial rights are secured, your customary practices are secured, then only you can have peaceful coexistence with the people you are living with. But until this sense of insecurity is solved in Manipur among the different ethnic communities living together, there will always be apprehension against one another, because if we look at the administration in the hill areas today, when the government of Manipur wants to give some package or developmental schemes to the chief in the hill areas, they feel they are not ready, or they feel they are scared because they are not used to the democratic administration or the British administration. They feel that this is a challenge to their chieftainship rights. So to give the Kukis constitutional protection and constitutional provision to administer themselves and govern themselves according to their customary laws or customary practices, religious beliefs, is a legitimate right of the Kukis in Manipur. And I would also like to mention the sixth schedule do not fall outside the executive authority of the state. Even if sixth schedule provisions are given and territorial council is given to the Kukis in Manipur, the power of the state government will not be affected. The state government will have the authority to organize and reorganize the boundaries of the territorial council. They will indirectly come under, the territorial council will indirectly come under the government of Manipur. It is just that the people that have existed as different community, as sovereign people since the British time, before the British time, and which were never under the same administration with the valley dwellers, will be given their rightful claim or legitimate rights under the Constitution of India.
It's 4 o'clock.
And if we look at the constitutional
Aaron, can you please wind up?
provisions given under, oh yes. Last thing, just 2 points I would like to mention. There is always apprehension between different communities living in Manipur, but I feel the Nagas also should be given their rightful claim, and the same should be given to the Kukis. And when I say UPF and KNO, it will not be easy for the government of Manipur to give equal constitutional protection for all the tribes living in Manipur. But however, if you look at UPF and KNO today, there is Mar community, there is Zomi, there is Kuki, and a solution for KNO and UPF would mean solution for the major Kuki ethnic community. And if the Nagas get a solution, then it will be a solution in the hill areas of Manipur. And I feel our Meitei dwellers or the Meiteis also should be positive, so that peaceful coexistence that we believe should be made available in Manipur. I should conclude with this. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Aaron. We'll come back to you again with some questions that's coming to us in the chat box. To all the listeners, the participants, I just want to remind everyone again that the topics that are are available for today's discussion given to the speakers by myself. So they are not choosing their topics. I just want to clarify it so that nobody has any doubt about why somebody is speaking on that issue. For that matter, it is me who decided the topics, who to give and who to speak on which topic. Again, please submit your questions in the chat box. And I would like to request that the remaining two speakers to please stick to 13 minutes so that we have enough time, sufficient time for a Q&A session. Now, I would like to invite the fourth speaker, Dr. Malim, to talk about challenges from within and the periphery. And Malam, as I said to you and others, you please feel free to say whatever you think is necessary without any apprehension, without any hesitation, because this is an open forum, academic forum, you are free to speak what is in your minds. 30 minutes to you, Malam.
Thank you. I was given to speak on the topic challenges from within and outside. Earlier it was periphery, but then later I got outside again, so that's changed. Anyway, let me begin with a small definition, I should say, so that I will be in a position to carry forward the discussions. Here we're talking of...
Malam, excuse me, one thing. I don't know who gave you, but still your topic is challenges from within and the periphery. It's not outside. So maybe there is some miscommunication. Still, it's the periphery. Yeah.
Anyway, it's okay. I will be able to do that. Now, as you see the topic, it's Kuki Nationalism, political aspirations, right? So let me begin with nationalism. Nationalisms, in the short definitions or a very common word, it's a feeling, a love for motherland, and you also have aspirations. So the feeling and aspirations always goes together, and it has meeting grounds. Problem arises when the feelings and aspirations have to be converted into reality. Because conversions into reality involves organizations, it will definitely invoke territorial sense, geography, identity, ideology, polity, economy, culture, so on and so forth. And this will involve what I think as consolidation of people, construction of identity, and overcoming challenges. So what I see from Kuki nationalism is this one. There is a cartographic depiction of what is being called Zalengam. Sorry if this is a rough sketch that I found from the internet. But this cartographic depictions goes along with the political voice and strategic activities. And it can convey different meanings to different people. But the objective is very clear that this cartographic depiction is an expression of the desire and the process to unify people, call it a nation, and consolidate their power, and also to overcome challenge, but forward for exercising what is being called as self-determination. I will not go into the exact theoreticals and the political meanings of self-determination, which has been oscillating from time to time. But interestingly, what I found when I was given the topic is like, given this is the background, what I found is like challenges from within and outside. Here I could see, when the topic was chosen, I could see a binary approach, right? Within on periphery, or call it outside, whatever it is. And what I perceived when I first looked into is that there is always, this binary approach is always connected to organizational effort and some kind of polemics. It's always involved. What I see is like within, when one talks of within, do we mean to say, many questions can be asked, do we mean to say the we or within as a core, as in homogeneous block? Is it a homogeneous block? Or the periphery? What is periphery? Where it is located? Can it be located within an officially imagined landscape? Where exactly is the periphery? I will come to that. But one thing is very clear that a binary depictions of within outside as some kinds of compartments is being depicted. But then I think we need to add here the fuzzy zones. And we also need to see that this within or outside or periphery, these so-called imaginary blocks are to be seen as segments within an overarching system. And what exactly is the system? So based on these perceptions, I would like to dwell further. But then before switching on, what I want to say is that this binary approach itself is the role of agency. The role of agency is very much prevalent here. And the idea of within or outside can be limited to or can be confined to certain hardcore organized sections. And of course, since nationalism has to be converted into reality through consolidations and then through unifications and through organized activities, the roles of agencies cannot be denied. Now, the problems that we need to see when we are trying to understand the core is, question is like, is the way or the inside or the within an organically tangible enumerative community with sub-boundaries? Will it be defined geographically? Will it be defined linguistically or ethnically? Or will it be defined ideologically? Or will it be defined administratively? Or would it be defined on the basis of organizations? Or will it be seen from historical time? These are some of the questions that strikes in my mind. However, it's being seen that that the Kuki nationalisms, I have gone through the works of Pu Haukit, and the role of agency is very much clear there. You already have in the beginning this an overarching rough Zalingam cartography that encompasses a vast area. But now he has divided into various zones. This is called the central Zalingam. And the other, I don't know whether the others are going to be a periphery or are going to be alignment or a collaboration, that I don't know. But it's very much clear that when it comes to Kuki nationalisms, the concept of central Zalingam rested within the territory of Manipur, where the dominant base of Kuki nationalisms have to be built on. And it is here that the agency, the actors or the organizations would be enacting, nourishing and advocating an officially imagined Kuki nationhood. This will involve consolidations of the linguistic and the presumed patriarchal lineages. I am using the word lineages in plural terms. And we can see that some kind of, known as ethno-nationalisms. And it may went to the extent of expanding into various confederations with other sections, like the whole idea of Sikkim. I don't know if it is fitted into the idea of Zogam and etc. Well, it went to the very fuzzy idea of the Manase and expressing as far as Israel sometimes, but practically it has a dominant base within Manipur. Having said this, let me now switch on to the other fact. See, what I am trying to present is purely from a historian's perspective, how I see the things. And I find that that the historical course, the roles of agencies and all these developments that I have talked about has to be located within a historical course, where the crystallizations of Kuki identity gains both objectives and the subjective inputs and furthers. And the context, I would say, in 20th century, I could find linear growth. And what was the linear growth? A change in the demography of the Kukis. It could be due to natural birth, or it could be due to migrations from other parts, other side of the boundary. There can be many reasons for that, but demography plays an important role. And plus, we may like it or not, but we have a system of governance earlier from 1947, 48, we had our own constitutions. But then once being in India, there is a governance where the Kukis are also enjoying certain constitutional rights and opportunities in state making, both in the legislative, executive, and judiciary, and many other avenues of opportunities. Then we have representative polity, where the electoral politics becomes a norm, and then and there are changes brought about by the systems where social communications and mobility becomes very improved to some extent considerably. And then we have economy, and then development of tools and technology, and this includes even firearms, and the method to use it, and the strategy to organize army and fight. Plus, there are strategic opportunities where the cookies are located on the trade route or maybe in the border trade areas or wherever. So I am trying to say that all these historical courses provides the material foundations for the agencies to act and again, crystallize the identity. So it was not in a vacuum, but it's a course of the linear growth where the role of agencies also had an important bearings. My time is running out, but let me just wrap up. Challenges from within, yes. Initiatives from the central Zalangam is very much there. Unfortunately, there are problems within the so-called the imagined Kuki nationhood, because I have to figure out 2-3 points. Economically backward territory dispersed into unfavorable hilly geographical terrains that obstruct economic cohesion. Plus, the changes that we see is not, there are limitations to the changes. Still, we have semi-feudalism fitted into neoliberal political economy, thereby perpetuating clan-based kleptocracy by elites. And all this had a favorable ground for the continuous perpetuations of what is being called chauvinism, hegemony, sectarianism, and resistance. This is quite revealing in the nomenclature trends as I was going through the scheduled caste tribe order from 1951 to 2013 and up to 2013. There is a struggle for the inclusions of what is being called any Kuki tribe within, but then I saw another one, any Lusei, and plus I saw that despite the inclinations to the broader Kuki nomenclature, the tribes were trying to assert their identity into various formats. And we still have problems where some tribes, for various reasons, do not identify themselves as Kukis, but as Nagas or as a separate identity, despite the fact that the continuous projections by the Kuki nationalists are trying to show them within the Kuki nomenclatures. Again, in organizational trends, we have of late the emergence of UPF and KNO as an umbrella body, but there are still clan-based, so-called clan-based organizations still eking out their own activism. So in the midst of attempted homogenizations and consolidations, there are also segments and fractions still operating, which also poses, coupled with the points that I have figured out, hampering the unifications and consolidations of the cookies. I still have 2 more slides, but my time is almost running out. I would like to request the organizers to kindly give me at least 2-3 minutes so that I will be able to point out. Otherwise, it's going to be missed out.
Sure. Go ahead.
Now, when one talks of the outside and the challenges from outside, let me point out, this is the book that I have written called Diametrical Nationalisms, where you have different trends of nationalisms operating. And there are lots of overlapping phases where the projected members from a particular national imaginations often go sides with the other. This is quite revealing. So we have Indian nationalisms, Nagaland and Manipur nationalisms, Zalangams. But again, all these are again confined within the broader framework of what is being called imperialist globalizations. So this challenges itself is a threat. The globalization is a threat to everybody, including India, Zalangam, Nagaland, Manipur. But again, among these diametrical nationalist forces, there are contradictions and problems. Some contradictions are antagonistic, some are in cold conflict, but it's a threat to any of the imagined nationhood. This is the same conditions within Nagaland, Manipur, Zalingam, and India. And this contradictions has been going on. But the conflict, the causes of the conflict, I should say, I will not be able to elaborate right now, are centered on, the questions of demography. Everyone, I mean, particularly between the Manipuri nationalists and the Zalingams and the Nagaland, there is a projections of the threat to one another, relations to population. This has largely to do with control of land, resource, revenue, threat, and the demographic questions. I will not go into detail, but if there are questions, then we can elaborate on that. And there are conflict on landscapes and strategic dominance. This is very much there. These are all mixed up with individual opportunism and sectarianisms and communalism. Mr. Aaron pointed out about the incident that occurred in Limokong regarding the sports university. Many people see it as a conflict between two villages, but there are also a vast sections who always try to interpret it from communal perspectives, as if it is a Kuki and the Kuki and Meitei questions. That kind of communal interpretations continue to hamper the cordial relations, and this I call as motivated by individual opportunists whose political visions are highly sectarian and often culminate into forms of propagating communalisms and creating the peoples into some kind of chaos and restless. Yes, there is identity politics, which is very much connected to the constructions of collective memory and symbolisms, and often there is a class on these issues. These are the conflicts. Again, we have politically motivated polemical historiography and propaganda, which completely does away with scientific historiography. And of course, there is a strategic collaboration, as the spokespersons from Keno has pointed out, why they have taken up arms and why they have adopted a strategy to change the demand from the earliest complete statehood to territorial councils. There are strategic collaborations, and these strategic collaborations could also create a kind of conflict between certain forces who are looking for a different agenda. Yes, and there are dominations and status quo, etc. These are all mixed up. So I would say that historically, yes, the Kuki national movement is progressing, but it is hampered with internal strifes due to the economic, social, and ideological reasons and lack of organizational efforts, plus this attempted feeling and aspirations to convert Kuki nationalisms into an exact territorial and a consolidated entity also has got inherent internal conflict within the imagined projections of the nationhood, plus with the coexisting agencies who are working towards different nationalisms that posit against Kuki nationalisms. But I think thank you very much for giving me. I have spoken almost 18 minutes. I have only shown the problems and the prospects and the historical course. And given my topic, I am not able in a position to prescribe the way forward, which in fact would be the job of Fauzil Sauba, who would be speaking after me. Thank you very much for giving me this precious time. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Ningtoza. In fact, we are now 15 minutes behind the schedule. I'm not blaming any particular speaker here, but so if we stick on time, we'll be able to have more time during the question and answer session where you would be getting some interesting questions. So please, I would like to ask the last speaker, but not the least, to please stick to the time. In fact, let me just tell you one thing. Yesterday, I was invited by North-South University in Dhaka, where they allowed me to speak only 5 minutes as an opening remarks. But here, I'm very generous and I'm giving each speaker at least 13 minutes. Please stick to the time. And now I would like to invite the last speaker, but not the least, Fauzil Chauba. So you have 13 minutes. Please unmute your speaker.
Am I audible now? Hello?
Yes, you are. Yes, please go ahead.
At the outset, I would like to thank everyone here for allowing me to share my perspective as an independent observer. I have learned so much from our esteemed speakers. For the way forward, that is the topic given to me. And I would like to speak in a hypothetical situation. Let us imagine that we are all living along the sides of a road with different houses. Each house is being looked and inhabited by an ethnic community. It may be the Kuki Mizo group, it may be the Tangkhul Naga, it may be the Meiteis, it may be the other ethnic minorities. So when time immemorial, we have been neighbors for quite a very long time. And we have to acknowledge that particular past also, that all the ethnic communities are now living together in one locality. All the different houses have their own aspirations, their own ideals. Of course, it may be depending on economy, it may be depending on territory, it may be depending on social factors, and of course, the political ones. But when we are neighbors, one neighbor has to understand the hopes and aspirations, the wishes of the other houses, that is, of the other ethnic community. And of course, there will be issues which will be vexing our particular locality, our particular neighborhood from time to time. Yes, there are certain areas, external forces, which may also provoke something within this our particular locality. It may manifest itself in many forms, but we are living together in a state. The Kukis, the Chin Kuki Mizo community, the Nagas, Tangkhul Nagas, the Meiteis, the Muslims, you name it. So when one house has a particular interest, that particular house should also see there should be a foresight that if we are actually impeding or treading on the toes of our neighbor. Having said that, but we should also have the courtesy to acknowledge our own faults, our misgivings, and at the same time be able to take one step forward, and at the same time be able to take 2 steps backward. There are the houses. I'm speaking on a very hypothetical situation. I think that will be best as per the situation. So when one house has an issue, that issue, I think it can be taken up with the other houses in the locality. And we may ask the opinions of what our neighbors, they want, or are our wishes, our aspirations hampering the interests of our locality. That is where the civil organizations also play a very big role as to bring about a collective opinion for the way forward in our locality. Each community and the civil organizations, I believe they play a very immense and apex role in bridging the gap among all the other houses in our small community estate, which we call Manipur. Of course, there's the fight for a Jalingam, a Kuknalim, and of course, for sovereignty. However, some of these demands, as our former speakers have more than expressed, that things are subject to change. And of course, the other houses would be willing to say their opinions that, of course, whether it be a territorial for territory or a territorial council or sovereignty or an extended amount of a southern area in Manipur. We will welcome, every community will welcome the wishes and aspirations of the other, provided that, as Mr. Arun was also putting it before, that the territory, it should not be compromised. The structure of the state cannot be divided as per the interest of one house, but as a collective, I feel that one house will surely voice its opinions and its misgivings, or also to aid, to help those other houses when they are in a state of a fire that may have consumed that particular house. But within that particular house, when it, sometimes there is such a situation that when that house is burning, those people who are the residents, the inhabitants of that particular house, they fail to see that the fire is going to involve everything and destroy everything, while the inhabitants of the house are fighting after the remote control of the TV, in a way of saying. And of course, there are also other external threats, like if other external forces comes to play, and if they come to our state, into your house, into your locality, and they chop off all your trees, they start digging in your backyard for petrol, for chromite, for gas, for minerals, and they build dams at the back of your river, at the back of your house. Then if I say that one community will say yes or no, but that affects not only the house, but of the whole locality, of the whole state. So these things should be taken into consideration. And of course, there have been mistakes made, as Mr. Silent Hawkip was stressing upon. But we have to acknowledge our past achievements along with our mistakes. And I feel that this will send a message of hope and a responsibility to the public. And I believe that living together is a historical necessity, and we have to settle our differences and force alliances. And we have to sit down and also hammer out a solution which will unite us, a solution which will be in the interest of all the other communities. So on that particular note, we have come to such a time, into such a situation, that the whole locality must come together. And of course, there are floods which will come from time to time. And we are in a situation where we either swim together or we sink together. And that is a reality, and that is not a choice. And I feel that the way forward is for all the communities to unite and to go on the way forward. Thank you for the time.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chauba. Was in fact a very honest and straightforward and sincere response to some of the presentations had by the previous speakers. And now we have about 25 minutes or so for question and answer session. We have received plenty of questions in the chat box. I know we cannot go over all these questions, but I would like to choose some of the questions for the speakers to answer. First, I would like to start with the question of nomenclature. I think especially this question goes to Dr. Sailin and Mr. Aaron. There are a lot of questions coming on your way regarding the nomenclature. If I may elaborate, I try to not speak my what we call position on the issue, but I rather would like to hear from you guys, since you are representing two umbrella armed groups of the Kuki community and entering dialogue with the government of India. How do you look at the issue of nomenclature? For example, both of you talk about Kuki Territorial Council. And in fact, you discuss how important, what was the necessity for changing from statehood, Kuki statehood to territorial council. But in the meantime, we have come up with different names, nomenclatures such as Zumi, such as Chin, such as Kuki, such as Yo. There are different nomenclatures out there. In fact, some of the speakers also have talked about this. So in light of these different nomenclatures, what do you see, what do you foresee in the future, when you negotiate or when you enter dialogue with the government of India? What is your position on these different names of nomenclature that our society has to deal with? Are you straightforward with using the name Kuki, or are you okay with any of this nomenclature? Are you taking or accepting as the same, one and the same, or the two sides of the same coin? What is your position on nomenclature on Kuki? So I would like to start with Sailin and then come to Aaron. Or please answer this question very briefly because we don't have much time. Yeah. Please unmute your speaker.
Am I clear now?
Yeah, you are, please.
Okay. Nomenclature, as we see spreading today, is a recent phenomena. Now, when KNO is talking about Kuki nationalism and its projected political objective, we base it on documentation and historical facts, because that is primarily necessary, because when you're asking for a certain political status, it has to have a name associated with it, which is legally binding. So whilst I can say that I'm a Kuki in Manipur, a Chin in Burma, and a Mizo in Mizoram, that's possible because we're the same ethnic people. But when we're talking about Kuki nationalism in the context of present-day Manipur and the political issues that is being dealt with, we have to base it on an identity that is inclusive historically and in terms of the ethnicity, and therefore Kuki is the term to use. I am very aware of the sentiments of other nomenclature protagonists, but those are more binding because of local recent political clannish issues, and they, while I recognize them, cannot be mixed up with a fact of historical basis, which is essential in when you're claiming your area within Manipur, be that as it may. So Kuki is being used from a ethnic point of view historically. And I just like to refer back to the professor who spoke this earlier. He referred to a popular notion that Kuki is an identity given by the Bengalis, which is very popular in Mizoram, for instance. I beg to differ there because we are in Manipur, and in the entire area, if you look at the original script, historically contemporaneous recorded issues of our people, it's only the Meitei people who has it, the Puyas. Now, there's reference to it that 33 AD, when the first Meitei king was coronated, Kuki chiefs were instrumental in mobilizing him to the position of the throne that he was after. Now, that goes back 2 millennia. Now, if you look at that, the rest of the nomenclatures are recent entities. I don't discard them. They have a different basis, But in the context of the political situation now and in Manipur, Kuki is the only legal term that we can refer to. It does not mean that others are not part of our ethnic group. Blood cannot be changed. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Celine. And Aaron, if you would like to respond.
Very quickly, we are here to represent the voice of the people, but we are not here to decide nomenclature or the name of the nomenclature by ourselves. Dr. Celine also has pointed out, Kuki is a term which included all the elsewhere tribes, the Kuki tribes, from A to the Aimol, the Paites, the Vaipes, Tados. All right. However, we equally respect the fact that many of the tribes today are not willing to accept the terminology or the nomenclature. So, however, with this same people, we are united under the same banner, and we are fighting for the same political demand, which is very positive. And this should not hamper our unification. But again, a day will come, if at all there is an issue, we will decide with the people. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Aaron. If Professor Dongal is here, I would like to direct one question to him. Are you there, Professor Dongal? Okay, it seems he's not, he has a connection problem. We'll come back to him if there's a time, if he's coming on board. And again, I would like to follow up with, of course, Chaubai and Malim, please bear with us, because there are a lot of questions coming toward both Celine and Aaron. I mean, obviously, because they're representing two big organizations and the stakeholders. So I would like to put some emphasis on them, the questions that are directed towards them. Here, the question is for both Celine and Aaron. Naga's political solution is coming very near. This is from the chat box. What about the KNO UPF political solution? Are Kukis left or kept aside by the government of India? How is KNO and UPF take steps toward our political solution, keeping in view a strong opposition from the Valley people, that's the Métis? Celine and Aaron, please.
Who are you asking first, please?
Yeah, Celine, you can go ahead.
Okay. I think the apprehensions in the Valley are not ill-founded. And part of that is because there has been no interaction between the Valley people and us, as in an open forum like today. Now, be that as it may, this kind of dialogue, even on Zoom, is going to slowly bring to light issues and hopefully, dispel apprehensions. Because as far as KNO is concerned and UPF, our issues are very transparent. We are not anti-nationals, we're not secessionists, so our objectives are very transparent too. Now, what was the key to your question? I'm a bit lost there.
Okay, the keys to the question is there is a likelihood that the Nagas political is within reach. And where is the status? What is the status and update of Kuki's political movement, dialogue with the center, and with a strong opposition from the Métis? So how do you see your movement going forward?
Okay, with regard to the Valley people, the fact that we have come from statehood to TC speaks volumes. Now, insofar as the Naga talks with the center, we are really not sure where they are. However, I would like to stress that the Kuki's demand is not contingent on what happens to the Nagas or not. They're not comparable at all. One is asking for sovereignty. We are asking for TC within the state. Ours is very straightforward, reasonable, simple. So there's no need to mix the two. And we have highlighted this to the government also. So given that as a basis, there is no reason to compare Naga and Kuki movements. Kukis are as transparent as can be. Yes, apprehensions from the valley, they will be dealt with through open dialogue. Nothing should be hidden. And the fact that, I'll reiterate the point, we move from statehood to territorial council speaks for itself. Thank you.
All right, Aaron?
Uh, uh, over the years, when we started talking to the government of India, we have raised our apprehensions that if at all the Naga solution has to come, there is a bone of contention between the Nagas and the Kukis, which is undeniable. That is the overlapping territorial claims. So I hope the apprehensions many of the viewers have today that the Naga solution is coming, what about KNO and UPF, would have the same issue which we have raised to the government of India. Our point is clear. The Nagas have been talking to the government of India. It is obvious a solution has to come. We should be ready for that. However, we have put our points forward that without the consent or taking into account.
Looks like Aaron has bad connection. Aaron, are you there?
Yes, I'm.
Okay, please.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, please.
Okay. The apprehensions many of the viewers and our people have today might be the same. When we started with dialogue with the government, we have raised the same issue. We said the Naga solution could come sooner. However, the overlapping territorial claims without the consent of the Kukis should not be given or should not be taken away. The rights of the Kukis should not be taken away for the sake of the Naga solution. The KNO and UPF political dialogue is in an advanced stage, but it does not depend on the Naga political solution. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Aaron. Now I have a question for both Dr. Malam and Pauzel. Do you think the Kuki armed groups, that's KNO and UPF, got their nationalism and aspiration right? Being an observer and insider are two different perspectives. I would really like to hear from both of you as an observer. Malam, will you start first?
As an academics and as an activist, we uphold right to self-determination of nations and nationalisms. These are all democratic process. The question is how to resolve it, as there are also stakeholders. For this, we need conscious dialogue, democratic, knowing each other's realities, not going by fictional claims or counterclaims or whatever it is. So I would see it as rather a progress.
Okay, thank you, Malam. Pauzel, what's your opinion about that? Please unmute your speaker.
Right. I would refer to my earlier statement that I make, that inside a house, when the house is burning, the family inside is quarreling among themselves to fight over the remote control. So what I feel about the question of ideology of nationalism, this is something which is not only for the Kichin Mizo I think there's some background noise over here.
Everyone, please mute your speaker, except the one who is speaking.
Yeah. So
thank you.
So I feel that this problem is not only for the KNO or the UPF or with their ideology. It is basically with every other organizations which is on a particular route similar to the other different ethnic communities, the path they are treading. So what I feel is that aside from this other issues, the organizations and the communities should be more inclusive, more ethno-inclusive. So what is the use of a Haukip versus another Haukip? When there's a Meitei against another Meitei, and then a Naga against another Naga. While the community, not only the community, but also the history, as I was saying, that we have to learn to live together. Not only the Kukis, not only the Meiteis, but we must be more ethno-inclusive rather than ethno-exclusive. So I feel that ideology from time to time, it can change as per what we have seen. And I would not like to name other communities, but we can see what are the present issues which are vexing the particular organization's objectives and the ideals. Anyway, it is up for the particular community to talk it out with the other external forces, or in our observation, the government of India. The KNO, the UPF may have their own issues, their own ideals. So does the other community, they have their own also. So in some ways, I feel that all the other communities, those who are here in this particular region, should come together. We talk about your demands. We talk about their demands. And if these demands are at least conducive for bringing about a peaceful coexistence. So immaterial of the KNF, the UPF, the NSN, or the other Meitei revolutionary groups, or the other demands for civil organizations, I feel that, as I said, that nowadays it is a global community, but our ideas and our hopes, our aspirations has to be at least agreeable with the others. That's why I said that we have to sit down and hammer out the other solutions, different solutions. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Pajo. Unfortunately, we are coming almost out of time now. We have only 1 minute, but as a chair, I would like to take a couple of minutes here. We'll try to close by 5 p.m. We'll have another 5 minutes or so extra. There are some questions in the chat box, but I would like to rephrase those questions and put up especially for Celine and Aaron to answer this question. So unlike many societies around the world, especially in developed societies or developed countries, as a scholar myself or as academic myself, I believe that the role of civil society or the role of academics in a society is inherently important. Either you are talking about political movement, societal change, or economic improvement or economic growth. Regardless of which topic you are talking, I think we should be listening to experts. We should be giving room for scholars and academics who are expert on that subjects. And having said that, I just would like to raise one quick question to especially Celine and Aaron. How important do you think the role of scholars and academics in the society is, especially with regard to your political movement? And how much receptive are you to the ideas and suggestions given by those scholars and academics in your movement? Maybe 1 minute, Celine, and start Celine and then Aaron, please.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, in fact, once the demand from statehood to TC was made public, a group of scholars, etc., were invited by UPF and KNO in drafting together a document that would be presented to the center and to the state government. So that was done, and that shows that we are not, against any thing that would be exclusivist. We want to be inclusive in terms of our movement. And as Chauba also mentioned, we need more interaction with the other stakeholders in the state of Manipur. We must be very clear that whatever we are asking in terms of politics or whatever is within the framework of the state of Manipur. So we have to be mindful of that. And just as yourself, if I may say so at the moment, you have taken the initiative to bring us together on this platform. I would urge Dr. Malam, he has done in different topics, if Chabo also would do the same, and there'll be more interactions. And I think that's the way we are going to go forward, through dialogue, through transparencies. So we have been inclusive. We have reached out to scholars, etc., from our community also, and we would like to continue to do so. Thank you.
All right, Aaron. Hello? Is Aaron there or is he gone?
I can see him.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Dr. Shailin has mentioned how we consult the scholars or the intellectuals within the community when we draft the political demands of Territorial Council. I would like to be very open. Within the intellectual circle, everyone does not have the same mentality. And for those people, even within our community, who are doctorates and scholars, but who speak in the interest of some particular organization, which I think is not very healthy. And we need to really be inclusive so that there's a change in society. I'm being blunt. And again, as Dr. Shailin also has mentioned, one point, today we are invited by Dr. Nagin Pao, which is very good. However, for the interest of all the communities living together in Manipur, if this kind of discussions can take place, from being invited by other communities, which I think it will be very healthy. Thank you.
All right, okay. Now we come to the last part of the session. Thank you, everyone. Before we close the session, I want to give every speaker a chance to have your closing remarks. So now I would like to start from Professor Dongal, if he's around. So please don't take more than 1 minute because we are running out of time. Professor Dongal, if you have any closing remarks to make, 1 minute, please. Okay, it seems he's not around. So I would like to invite the second speaker, Dr. Shailin, if you have a closing remark to make. 1 minute, please.
I would like to express a lot of thanks to you and the institution you represent. But from among the panelists, I really appreciate what Dr. Malam has so professionally laid out in the charts very clearly, etc., and how we have been able to look at those. It's unfortunate that there are a few things that I wanted to say about the chart that he kept out so well, but we are constrained for time, so we can't do that, but thanks to him nonetheless. And with Chauba, he's in a critical position as a journalist. If issues like what we're discussing today, which is open, which is transparent, and the parameters are very clearly laid out, and if more of this happens, I think the way forward is going to be even better. We see a light at the end of the tunnel because of the integrity of such kinds of discussion. Thank you.
All right, Aaron.
Yes, one last point. There are apprehensions all over the state when the NSCNIM, or for that matter, KNO, UPF, is trying to ink a political solution. But rest assured for all the people living in Manipur that this is a peaceful negotiation and the interest of all the communities will be respected, even by KNO and UPF, when at all political solution has to be achieved for the Kukis. Thank you.
All right, Malam.
Thank you very much. It's well-organized programs. There is a question which I was not, I mean, it's very important. I would like to address in a very short while. One is like, what's my perception on Anglo-Kuki War and about the Southern Nagaland banner in Manipur? Let me give a response in two sentences. Number one, historiography in Manipur is not even 100 years old. We have partisan, it's still backward. We have partisan historians purely motivated by political and ethnic and cultural agenda. We need to break this backwardness. And about the banner, I think it will change the moment we learn to fight together for a common cause. So that's it. Thank you very much for organizing these wonderful programs. And thanks to Dr. Selin for the wonderful comment.
All right, Paujel.
It's been a very eventful session. My thanks to all the participants and the organizers for allowing me to share some of my thoughts. And for further improvement, as I think that Mr. Arun was talking about, it'll be wonderful if this particular dialectical exercise could include some other community, especially our brethren from the Tangkhul Naga community also in future.
All right, Paujal, if I may respond very quickly. Last year, we organized a similar discussion in Delhi where we invited representatives from the Nagas, the Métis, and the Kukis. And this time, we are coming specifically for one community. In fact, we had done that. Of course, we look forward to organizing such events in the future, and we love to see you guys again being part of the event. And we definitely would like to look forward your feedback on how we could do better. And in fact, this, as I said to you personally, and of course to all the speakers, this was not intended for any kind of what we call particular motive behind or any hidden agenda. It was just open discussion in an academic forum where I would like to bring in people from different organizations and stakeholders from inside and outside so that we see, I mean, it's always good to understand what people think about us rather than what we think about ourselves. So that's why I would like to bring people from inside as well as observers to see where the Kuki nationalism and political aspiration is. Having said that, I would like to again remind everyone that this session was recorded. It will be up in YouTube channel very shortly for public in the public domain. And again, and also we will be sharing this a comprehensive report of the entire event in the next few days or so. Now, before we close the session, I would like to invite my research intern, Disan Chaudhary, to say the vote of thanks. Disan, the floor is yours.
Yes, hello everyone. Respected speakers, our most valued invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to have been asked to propose a vote of thanks on this occasion.
It's 5 o'clock.
I, on behalf of the Center of Southeast Asian Studies and the entire team, extend a very heartfelt vote of thanks to all the speakers present here for gracing your important work and sharing with us your findings and opinions today. I would like to extend a big vote of thanks to Professor Dangle, who I believe is not present here with us right now at the moment, but he shared his insights on the identity of the Kuki people, their origin, and why this movement was important to their community. Moving on from there, I would like to mention a deep sense of appreciation for Dr. Silent Hokip. He shared with us the insightful thoughts on why the Kuki nationalism was important with respect to the geopolitical and ethnic structure prevailing in the region, and he also gracefully defined for us why the shift was important from statehood to TC. So with that regards, moving on from there, I would like to again extend heartfelt thanks to Mr. Aaron Kidgin. He also highlighted on the customary practices, the ancestral, the importance of the ancestral land and the sovereignty and cultural rights of the tribal people, and why their demand needs to be put forward in the way that it is today. Then I would also like to express our sincere thanks to Dr. Malam for putting through the historical perspective and the development course based on such historical context, which was very, and also for sharing his PPT, which was very interesting and informational for all our guests present here. Then I would also like to extend our vote of appreciation to Mr. Paujal. For showcasing the way forward by using a hypothetical case scenario as to why neighbors should come together and help people, and keeping in mind the interest of all the stakeholders and not just their own self-interest. One interesting piece of information I admired about all the guests present here is that in showcasing as to what the movement means and putting through their demands, everybody highlighted that it is very important to maintain peace and integrity in the region, and also put forward their views keeping in mind the constitutional framework of our country. So I'm very thankful for everyone for sharing their insights into this topic that we had put forward through our organization today. Last but not the least, I would like to thank Professor Kipgen for organizing this wonderful webinar where we have people from different backgrounds, different professions who could share insights into their opinions on the matter today. And in the end, a webinar is not complete without the participation of the audience that we have invited, and for keeping it engaging and informational. So that's it. Thank you all for being present here today. I hope that in the near future we can organize a physical webinar in Delhi or somewhere else in the country, so that we can have a more engaging conference. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Dishan, for the vote of thanks. Again, I, as Executive Director of the Center for Southeast Asian Studies, I would like to thank all my research assistants and interns for helping me organize this successfully. Again, once again, I would like to thank all the speakers for taking out your time and sharing your insightful comments and analysis of the present situation with regard to the Kuki nationalism and political aspiration. And we look forward to having this kind of session in the futures as well. And we look forward to seeing you in person in the future. Having said that, we come to the end of this session. Thank you once again, everyone. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye. Bye all.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Dison.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.